There is a skeleton in the dungeon. At the beginning of the first episode of Adventure Time, Princess Bubblegum walks past it. She doesn't acknowledge it. The episode is about something else entirely: the zombie crisis, the candy people, the cover story. And in the background of the very first scene in which we meet her, in the first seconds of the first real episode of the show, there is a skeleton in a dungeon that she walks past without breaking stride. Pendleton Ward confirmed this was intentional, not an accident, not background filler, not the artists being lazy with the dungeon set dressing. Intentional. There's a skeleton in PB's dungeon, and the show put it there on purpose, and then walked past it on purpose, and moved on with the episode as if nothing was there. That's Princess Bubblegum. That's the entire character in one image, before the episode has even properly started. The warmth is real, the science is real, the love for her people is real, the skeleton is also real. They all exist in the same frame simultaneously, and the show trusts you to notice the skeleton without making a speech about it. Tonight, we're going through everything. Every secret, every dark choice, every cost that the Candy Kingdom was built on, and the specific ways that one of the most beloved characters in Adventure Time accumulated a history that doesn't fit on the nice pink surface of a Candy Kingdom. We're going to go through each piece carefully. We're going to give them the attention they deserve without either condemning her as a villain or excusing her as just a good person doing her best. She is both. That's the whole thing. She is genuinely good, and she has done genuinely dark things, and the show is insistent that both of those statements are true simultaneously. Get comfortable. This one takes a while. Some of what we're going to talk about hits differently when you have the full picture, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It keeps us making these and means more than I can say. Let's start with what she is, because her nature is the foundation of everything that follows. Princess Bonnibel Bubblegum, estimated to be 827 years old in the presence of the main series. She emerged from the Mother Gum, a vast blob-like hive mind of pink goo that spread through the ruins of a city destroyed by the Mushroom War. She was not created. She was not designed. She individuated. The consciousness that became Bubblegum developed spontaneously from the accumulation of sentient matter in the nuclear aftermath of human civilization's end. The Wikipedia entry on Bubblegum confirms the specific mechanism. She is a bioengineered construct primarily made of pink bubblegum, who emerged as an individual entity from the Mother Gum. The Growikipedia article on her notes. She emerged as an individual entity from the Mother Gum, a vast blob-like biomass of pink gum, existing as a rudimentary hive mind in the post-war era. This separation allowed Bonnibel to develop sentience and agency, marking the beginning of her independent existence, approximately 800 years before the series' primary events. So the first thing to understand about Princess Bubblegum is that she made herself, essentially. Nobody taught her values, nobody raised her, nobody told her what was right and wrong in the specific way that parents tell children these things. She arrived at her values through the same process by which she arrived at everything. Her own scientific mind applied to the specific problems of her specific situation in the ruins of a world that had just ended. Every ethical principle she holds was worked out by herself, mostly alone, mostly under pressure. Every dark choice she made was also worked out by herself, without external correction, without anyone empowered to tell her she was wrong. This is not an excuse, it's context. The context that makes the dark choices comprehensible without making them acceptable. The first generation of Candy People. This is the oldest secret in the Candy Kingdom's history, and it's delivered in the most casual possible way by Banana Guard gossip. The Adventure Time wiki on Princess Bubblegum confirms. In the thin yellow line, it is revealed by the Banana Guards that the first Candy People turned on PB, and she turned them into monsters. The first Candy People turned on her. She turned them into monsters, and then she made a second generation, the calibrated version, the one where she had adjusted the recipe to produce compliance and happiness and the inability to sustain political resistance. The Candy People we know, the ones who cheerfully inhabit the kingdom and explode when scared and attend parties and don't ask hard questions, are the second attempt. The first attempt rebelled. She transformed the rebels into monsters and started over. Where are these monsters? The show doesn't answer this. They are somewhere in Ooh, having lived for 800 years. as whatever she turned them into. They were the first beings she made from the Candy Life formula. They had wills apparently strong enough to turn against her, and she remade them rather than accommodating them. This is the founding act of the Candy Kingdom. A woman who discovered that her first attempt at creating citizens produced people who didn't comply and who responded by transforming those people into something that couldn't threaten her, and then creating a more compliant generation. The Gumball betrayal and the Dum Dum Juice. The Grokipedia entry traces this precisely. Gumball originated the idea of a candy kingdom, but became tyrannical and attempted to turn her into a simple-minded candy person using Dum Dum Juice. Bubblegum shatters the bottle in his hand out of self-defense, and he turns into a punch bowl. This is more complicated than the summary makes it sound. Gumball was one of the first beings she made. Her uncle figure, family she created because she wanted family around her. He had ambitions she didn't fully account for when she made him. He wanted to expand the kingdom faster, under his authority rather than hers. He developed a plan to strip her of agency using a formula that would reduce her intelligence and make her compliant, and then keep her around as a citizen of the kingdom he would take over. He was going to use her own mechanism, the mechanism she used to produce compliant candy people, against her. She discovered the plan. She turned it on him. Gumball became Punch Bowl, a simple, cheerful, round candy man, with no memory of his ambitions or his identity, living contentedly in the Candy Kingdom for centuries. The Adventure Time wiki on the 9th season arc confirms this. Near the end of the series, Gumball, Lolly, and Chickle are returned to their prior forms and seek revenge on Bubblegum. Lolly and Chickle, two more of her creations, also turned against her, also transformed with the Dum Dum Juice into candy people. Aunt Lolly became Mr. Cake, Cousin Chickle became Cinnamon Bun. Three people who conspired against her were stripped of their identities and kept in her kingdom for centuries, living as cheerful background characters. While she built the civilization they tried to take from her over their metaphorical graves. And Cinnamon Bun, this is the one that sits with me most. He is one of the show's most beloved secondary characters. A large, slightly undercooked cinnamon roll who is perpetually confused and good-hearted and lovably simple. He is also, the 9th season confirms, Cousin Chickle, the person who helped Gumball try to overthrow Bubblegum, who was stripped of himself and kept in the kingdom and has been there, being sweet and simple and slightly silly for hundreds of years without knowing who he actually was. Every episode in which Cinnamon Bun is a cheerful background presence across 9 seasons of the show is an episode in which a person who had their identity stolen by the kingdom's ruler is living out the consequences of that theft. He doesn't know, he has never known. His apparent personality, the lovable simpleton, is not his personality. It is the shell that replaced his personality when Bubblegum deployed the Dum Dum Juice, the design of the candy people. The Wikipedia entry on Bubblegum confirms this with characteristic directness. She created them that way, so they would not question her decisions or try to overthrow her, as Gumball had attempted to. The Adventure Time Grokipedia article expands. She was highly protective of the candy people and cares deeply for their safety, but is secretly strained by the pressures of ruling and expresses a desire for freedom from responsibility for her actions. The candy people's compliance is not natural. Their happiness is not accidental. Their inability to sustain critical political inquiry is designed. When the Adventure Time character analyses Tumblr blog published its detailed analysis of this question, it noted the counter-argument. Why would she make the banana guards so incompetent if she wanted her citizens controllable? The analysis suggests the compliance engineering is real, but was not cynically calculated from the start. Rather, it was a fear response to Gumball applied. Going forward, she made the second generation the way she made them because she was afraid of what the first generation's rebellion meant. Both readings contain truth. She was afraid. She had good reason to be afraid. And fear produced a choice that cannot be fully excused by the circumstances that produced it. Millions of beings have been living for 800 years in a kingdom designed so they would not question their ruler. They did not consent to this. They could not consent to this. The design preceded their existence. They were made into what they are by a person who needed them to be that and didn't ask. The exploding problem. The adventure time. Wiki establishes in the first episode, candy people explode when scared. This is a biological feature. It is not incidental. It is designed. Bubblegum designed citizens who cannot process fear without self-destructing. The practical consequence of this design choice is that the candy people are perpetually dependent on her protection because they are literally incapable of protecting themselves. They cannot even emotionally process the knowledge that they need protecting without the processing itself killing them. She is indispensable to them because she made them need her. The surveillance state. The Wikipedia article, following a near-death experience at the end of the second season, she starts to isolate herself and becomes overprotective of the candy people, even exhibiting authoritarian tendencies temporarily in the fifth season, such as installing multiple cameras in the kingdom and implanting tracking chips in every citizen. Tracking chips in every citizen. Every candy person in the Candy Kingdom had a tracking chip implanted by the woman who created them, who designed them to be docile, and who now literally knew where every one of them was at all times. The cameras were confronted by Finn and came down. The tracking chips, the show, doesn't confirm whether they were removed. The Adventure Time reviewed Blog's analysis of the surveillance arc notes that the episode's resolution is Bubblegum crying, understanding she went too far, and taking down the visible infrastructure. But the chips are not mentioned again. The possibility left hanging. They may still be in there. The people who were designed not to question their ruler may be walking around with tracking chips they never agreed to, and may never have had removed. The Cooler, Season 6, Episode 22, aired December 4th, 2014. Written and storyboarded by Cole Sanchez and Andy Restaino. This is the episode in which the full scope of Princess Bubblegum's foreign policy becomes visible, and it is genuinely difficult to watch without admitting that the show is doing something serious. The Fire Kingdom is experiencing an unnatural cold. Its residents are losing energy. Some are dying from the temperature drop. Flame Princess turns to PB for help, and the revelation: PB engineered the crisis. She secretly enlisted the Ice King to cool the Fire Kingdom's core, creating the emergency that brought Flame Princess to her door, specifically so she could use the moment of trust to dismantle the Fire Kingdom's weapons of mass destruction, the sleeping fire giants, ancient mechs capable of destroying the Candy Kingdom. Flame Princess's brother had been publicly advocating their use. The TV Tropes recap describes the specific mechanism. Ice King is helping Princess Bubblegum manufacture the disaster facing the Fire Kingdom, likely due to him still being sore over Flame Princess melting his kingdom. PB used someone else's grudge as a tool. She manufactured a crisis in a sovereign nation. She used the crisis to create a situation where the sovereign of that nation would come to her for help. She used the help as cover to enter the Fire Kingdom and disable its military infrastructure. The Adventure Time reviewed recap of the Cooler notes. Bubblegum is obviously shown in the wrong for dismantling a weapon that could potentially destroy the Candy Kingdom. Yes, the show makes clear she is wrong. It is equally clear that her fear was not unreasonable. Flame Princess's brother is genuinely extremist about the fire giants, and the giants are genuinely a threat. The question the episode asks is not, was PB right to be scared, but does being right to be scared justify what she did? The answer the episode gives: no. Flame Princess calls her a bad person, and the show holds on PB's face as she registers that the accusation is accurate. The TV Tropes article notes the specific label applied to PB's surveillance room in this episode. It looks exactly like Batman's in The Dark Knight. The comparison to Christopher Nolan's Batman is in the reviews, in the discourse, and in the show's apparent awareness of its own parallel. PB's surveillance room and Batman's surveillance of Gotham are framed in the same visual language, deliberately. The difference, multiple reviews note, is that PB actually shuts hers down. She hears from Flame Princess that what she's doing makes her a bad person, and she takes the room apart. Batman doesn't make this choice in the film, PB does. The growth is real. The surveillance state she dismantled was also real. The inconsistently heinous wiki on Princess Bubblegum adds further detail. She ordered the Ice King to start freezing the Fire Kingdom's core, leading to multiple deaths, with one of them being shown on screen. Deaths, the manufactured cold crisis that PB engineered, killed people. The fire people who lost their energy to PB's covert operation are beings with lives, families, and the right to exist without their nation's infrastructure being sabotaged. Some of them died. One death is shown on screen. PB caused this. Flame Princess imprisoned in a jar as an infant. The inconsistently heinous wiki lists among PB's confirmed actions getting Flame Princess put in a jar for 15 years when she was a baby. The background of this act: the Flame King informed Bubblegum that his newborn daughter was evil, like a newborn star, volatile and striving to burn down the world. PB's response was to tell him to contain the infant, to put a baby in a jar, not to help the child, not to intervene in any supportive way, but to contain the threat she was told the baby represented. The Lady Geek Girl and Friends blog analysis of PB's moral ambiguity argues that the Flame Princess situation is defensible within its own context. You don't know how many people I see trying to blame PB by saying she could have done something to help Flame Princess, and when she does 15 years later, they scold her for no reason. Flame Princess was a willing subject for these experiments, and Princess Bubblegum was perfectly fair and just in letting Flame King take care of the problem when she was a baby, as we see in Lemon Hope, Wizard Battle, possibly the Duke, and numerous science meetings. The princess respects the rule of other kingdoms and does not interfere unless it's absolutely necessary. She had no right adopting the princess of the Fire Kingdom without consulting her father. This argument has something to it. PB does respect kingdom sovereignty when it comes to most interventions. But the specific act, telling a father to put his infant daughter in a jar, was not neutrally respecting sovereignty. It was actively recommending imprisonment for a child who had not yet committed any harm on the basis of fear about her potential. A baby in a lamp, alone, for 15 years. PB told Flame King to do this. Whatever the sovereignty argument, the outcome for the child was 15 years of isolation in a lamp, which the show subsequently treats as a significant cause of Flame Princess's developmental difficulties. Lemongrab. The Earl of Lemongrab's creation is one of the most analysed pieces of PB's history, and it deserves the full treatment it's rarely given in a single place. The Wikipedia entry on PB: Bubblegum doesn't understand Lemongrab's needs, so she creates a clone brother for Lemongrab to keep him company in You Made Me. But let's start earlier. Too Young, Season 3, Episode 1, aired October 3rd, 2011. Lemongrab is introduced as PB's first attempt at creating an heir. He is her DNA in a different key, born from the same candy science, carrying the authority drives of a ruler without the 800 years of experience that taught PB how to use those drives. He is not a failed experiment in the sense of a mistake she didn't plan for. He is the specific consequence of creating a being to be a ruler without being able to give that being the accumulated wisdom that makes rulership something other than tyranny. The Grokipedia article on PB describes the lemon grab situation. She conducts unethical experiments on sentient beings, like Lemon Grab and Goliad, which prioritise collective security over individual rights. The Lady Geek Girl analysis frames the broader pattern. Lemon Grab, Goliad, and Rattleballs all are characters that were dealt with in a somewhat cold way. Lemon Grab was given his own kingdom. That way Bubblegum didn't have to force him to adjust to the Candy Kingdom's norms. She gave him a kingdom as a solution to his incompatibility with the existing one. The Adventure Time character analyses. Tumblr blog identified the specific problem with this. Lemon Grab was created broken, given to himself as his only company, and then not adequately supported by the entity responsible for his existence. She created him wrong, confirmed he was wrong when he revealed himself to be incompatible with the Candy Kingdom, and sent him somewhere else so she wouldn't have to deal with the incompatibility. And the Lemon Grab clone, when Lemon Grab's loneliness became destructive enough, when he was sneaking into candy people's homes at night and sitting in their rooms, watching them sleep because he had no one, PB's solution was to make another Lemon Grab. She made Lemon Grab 2, not to help the original Lemon Grab understand himself or manage his nature or become something other than what he was, to give him company, another version of himself, a companion made from the same broken recipe. The escalation of the Lemon Grab arc from You Made Me through All Your Fault to Too Old, a trajectory that ends with Lemon Grab 1 eating, Lemon Grab 2 wearing his twin as part of himself, running the earldom as a combined grotesque tyrant with shock collars on all the lemon children, is the consequence of this approach. She made him wrong. She gave him another version of himself instead of addressing the wrongness. She removed the Candy Life formula from their access when they used it irresponsibly, preventing future creation. But she didn't change what they were. She kept them as they were, constrained their capacity for harm, and moved on. The inconsistently heinous wiki adds the combined Lemon Grab, after the original absorbed the second, becomes a powerful and cruel ruler, as shown in another 5 more short Greyballs. Following the destruction of the Lemon Grabs in Lemon Hope, Bubblegum recreates Lemon Grab using their remains. She made a 3rd Lemon Grab from the parts of the first 2 after they were destroyed. Lemon Grab 3, she keeps making the same broken thing, slightly adjusted, rather than confronting the foundational problem of what the recipe produces. Goliad and Stormo. The episode Goliad is season 4, episode 22, aired April 23rd, 2012. The Wikipedia entry. She also begins exhibiting strong authoritarian behaviour as she starts spying on all her subjects and begins taking more assertive actions from then onwards. The Grokipedia article in the Succession Crisis arc, exemplified by the episode Goliad, Season 4, Episode 22. Bubblegum creates Goliad, an immortal Sphinx successor, cloned from her own DNA to ensure stable rule after her eventual demise. However, Goliad's rapid development into a tyrant necessitates intervention by Finn and Jake. Goliad, made from PB's DNA, an immortal psychic sphinx, designed to inherit the kingdom. The show has PB explain why she made her. I've been thinking about what would happen if I, got a little too dead. Someone's got to rule the Candy Kingdom and take care of all my little ones. So I decided to make an heir, a new heir. She was awake for over 80 hours at this point. She had just had her near-death experience with the Lich. She was panicking in the specific way of someone who has never contemplated their own mortality and is now contemplating it extremely urgently. Goliad develops a social Darwinist philosophy within hours of being created, the comic pusher analysis. Bubblegum, after nearly meeting her mortal end, and only after discovering that the science/magic of Oo cannot extend her own life into the infinite, creates a creature of extraordinary power to extend her rule past the bounds of death. She intentionally designed an immortal creature capable of mind control to subjugate her kingdom for eternity, an act she knew could backfire. The analysis quotes PB, "I was afraid this might happen." She knew. She built something she knew might become dangerous because she needed it, and the need was too urgent to wait for a safer version. The Adventure Time character analyses blog noted, Goliad became a genuine tyrant immediately because she was given PB's DNA but received bad advice from Jake's display of social Darwinist behaviour. The DNA carries PB's potential for authority and her potential for authoritarian overreach. Without the 800 years of experience that taught PB to moderate both, Goliad expresses the raw form of both. She is what PB would be if PB had developed her worldview in the first few hours of her existence. The resolution, Stormo, made from Finn's DNA to counter Goliad. Stormo's qualities, heroism, self-sacrifice, loyalty, are used to produce a being whose entire purpose is to lock with Goliad in eternal psychic combat. Neither winning, neither losing, both frozen forever. Stormo is created to die in this way. He exists for a few hours, develops enough self-awareness to understand the situation, and chooses sacrifice. Finn says happy birthday Stormo, and the episode ends. They are still there, right now, in the present of the show. Goliad and Stormo are in eternal psychic combat somewhere near the Candy Kingdom. The show never revisits them. PB created two beings in one episode, one of which became a psychic tyrant, and one of which sacrificed itself to contain the tyrant. And then the episode ended, and the kingdom continued. The Rattleballs genocide. This is in terms of the specific quality of what was done and who it was done to. Possibly the darkest single act in PB's history. Rattleballs is season 5, episode 46, aired January 27th, 2014. Guests starring Rainn Wilson. The unofficial Adventure Time encyclopedia confirms as the kingdom continued to advance and modernise, Princess Bubblegum created a highly skilled police force to enforce the law for her, called the Rattleballs. Unfortunately, the princess had not anticipated their excessively violent methods of dealing with crime and was forced to destroy them all, save for one who managed to escape this genocide. The wiki uses the word. The inconsistently heinous wiki on PB is more specific. She killed nearly all of the Rattleballs, who were soldiers she created to protect her citizens, along with them being completely sapient and feeling beings. The mechanism of their killing. She gathered them, told them to count off into ones and twos, told one group to face the wall, told them no peeking, and crushed the other group on a platform. She did this to sapient beings she created, who had served her faithfully by doing exactly what she made them to do, by using their trust in her authority against them. They didn't peek because she told them not to peek. The compliance she built into them was the mechanism of their death. And then the ones facing the wall went on the platform, and so on, until they were all cubes of metal in the Banana Guard barracks. Rattleballs survived through force of will, the specific quality of his consciousness that allowed him to override his programming and turn around and see what was happening and run. He hid in a junkyard for years. When Finn found him and told PB, she came to the junkyard to have him destroyed, and Rattleballs, who could have fought his way out, chose to surrender. He told her he still serves her 100%, even if that means his destruction. And PB, in the moment of his surrender, stopped. She faked his death. She gave him a secret mission: protect the Candy Kingdom from the shadows. The grace he showed in defeat was what changed the outcome. The Adventure Time character analyses blog describes this morale. It's arguable that the programming still has some hold over his allegiances, but I find it more likely and badass that he's relinquished the wildfire of ego-driven action, having realised that all consciousness is slave to some authority or other. Rattleballs overcame his programming and chose to serve her anyway, which is either the most moving or the most disturbing piece of this episode, depending on how you read it. He chose this. He decided to keep serving the person who killed his brothers. whether that's dignity or something darker is left to the viewer. The inconsistently heinous. Wiki confirms additional specific acts. She tortured the Ice King by breaking his pinkies so that she could get the password to Wizard City. And she tortured Ice King by breaking his pinkies to extract screams from him after he unintentionally infects the Candy Kingdom with a freezer burn flu. Torture. The show depicts this. PB needing screams from Ice King to produce the cure for a plague, Ice King refusing to cooperate, PB causing him pain to extract what she needs. The Wikipedia article confirms she displays a non-hesitant willingness to torture Ice King, and that she was visibly hurt when Finn exposed this. She knew it was wrong. She did it anyway because the plague was killing her people, and the utilitarian calculation pointed clearly in one direction. The calculation was correct in its premises. People were dying. Screams would cure them. He had the screams. The conclusion she drew back from the calculation, causing him pain to obtain them, was wrong. She cried when Finn found out. The crying is real, and so is what she did. The James clones, the inconsistently heinous Wiki. Not to mention, she sent the original James to be killed by the zombies and hit Finn and Jake on the head with a wrench. After all of James's clones nearly got themselves killed, sacrificing themselves, she banished them to the wasteland and put their lives in danger. The James situation is worth tracing carefully. James, Season 5, Episode 22. Aired October 14th, 2013. James, a Candy Kingdom soldier, sacrifices himself to save PB, Finn, and Jake from monsters. He leads the monsters away. He dies heroically. PB gives him the Medal of Heroism posthumously. And then, because giving a posthumous medal to a dead person felt wrong, she made a clone of James to receive it. And then another and another, because the clones were useful, because they were, in the most specific sense, expendable in ways that James, the original, wasn't. She cloned a dead soldier without his consent because she needed someone to receive a medal she felt uncomfortable giving posthumously. She kept making the clones because copies were useful. The clones became zombies. She banished the zombie clones to the wasteland. The original James, the one who died heroically, was first sent into a situation PB knew would likely kill him. The inconsistently heinous Wiki is explicit. She sent the original James to be killed by the zombies. She may not have intended his death as the goal, but she sent him into the situation, understanding the risk and without adequate protection. The Candy in Space arc, the Fundamentals article on PB notes, Season 8 had her sending Candy into space to colonise new planets. By invading and growing inside of organic beings, she sent Candy bioforms into space that would colonise planets by growing inside the existing organic life on those planets. This is a form of invasion that works at the cellular level. Her Candy overwriting whatever life exists somewhere else. When the show confirms that this is happening to sentient beings, she retreats from it. But the plan was enacted, the Candy was sent. The mechanism was designed and deployed before she knew the targets were sentient. The Fundamentals article draws the comparison there explicitly. Grayball's 1000 plus shows a future where a gigantic prize ball guardian keeps the residents of the Candy Kingdom inside prize balls. The distant future sequence in the show implies that centuries from now, the Candy Kingdom has developed a guardian that imprisons its residents. The trajectory that PB is on, the surveillance state, the design compliance, the tracking chips, the cameras, has, in the distant future glimpse, produced a kingdom of enclosed people. The endpoint of benevolent authoritarianism extrapolated far enough forward. The biomass consumption, the adventure time. Wiki on PB confirms, in Video Makers and Mortal Folly, she consumes other candy people. According to Adam Muto, this is to replace lost candy biomass. The showrunner confirmed it. When she loses pieces of herself, she eats pieces of her citizens to replenish. The logic within the show's own terms is coherent. They are candy, the amounts are small, they regenerate, She is Candy too, and needs the raw material. The image is not small. The ruler who designed her people to be compliant and dependent and incapable of questioning also sometimes eats them. Neddy in the basement. The Adventure Time Wiki. Bubblegum has a younger brother named Neddy, a candy dragon spawned alongside her from the mother gum. Neddy lives underneath the Candy Kingdom, where Bubblegum keeps him isolated as he is very easily frightened. The specific thing she says about him: Neddy is just built different. We just need to respect it. The Banana Guard's rumour about this, documented in the Adventure Time Wiki, is that Neddy was imprisoned under the palace tree, not put there for his own safety. The Wiki notes, this is likely just an urban legend, as Neddy was not chained up or forced to stay. But the functional reality is this: Neddy is in the basement. He has been there since the Candy Kingdom was founded. He sustains the kingdom with the secretions his permanent, trauma-induced suckling on the candy tree roots produces. The kingdom's healing facilities, the warm pink juice that the candy people use for recovery, comes from Neddy's withdrawal from the world. The kingdom is sustained by a being who is too broken by birth to be part of it, kept in the basement, where his compulsive behaviour becomes infrastructure. PB says she respects how he's built. She cannot fix him, and she cannot bear to lose him, so she keeps him protected and hidden. This is genuine love. It is also, functionally, using her brother's permanent psychological condition as a resource for the kingdom built above him. Whether or not Neddy would consent to this arrangement, whether his consciousness is developed enough to meaningfully consent to anything, the arrangement exists. He suffers, and the kingdom heals. The suffering is not imposed. It is just what he is. The kingdom just runs on it. The specific quality of PB's relationship with Marceline over the centuries. This is not a dark secret in the way the others are. It's more complicated than that. The estrangement between them, the centuries of distance, the specific way that Bubblegum became the Candy Kingdom and pulled away from Marceline. In the process, this is a person choosing her institution over her relationship. It produced genuine harm. Marceline's specific grievance, as expressed in I'm Just Your Problem, and developed in the Obsidian flashbacks, is the grievance of someone who watched a person they loved become something that had less room for them. The concert t-shirt, PB kept it, wore it as nightwear for however long the estrangement lasted. This is the detail that makes the estrangement not straightforwardly PB's fault. She was grieving the relationship too, carrying the evidence of it in her pyjama drawer, unable to throw away the piece of Marceline she still had, but she also maintained the distance. She let the estrangement continue. She was the one with the institutional resources and the power and the 800 years of experience. Marceline was the one singing I'm Just Your Problem at a magic door. The asymmetry, incapacity to address the situation was not neutral. The Gumbald War's final consequence. When Gumbald is restored to himself in Season 9 and declares war, the show forces PB to reckon with what her founding choices produced. The Great Gum War is a direct consequence of turning political opponents into furniture and keeping them in your kingdom for centuries. The Dum Dum Juice, deployed in self-defense on the advice of what choice did I have, created the conditions for the war that nearly destroyed everything she built. Self-defense doesn't erase consequence, and her response to the imminent war in the series finale. She wakes from the shared dream of it and chooses forgiveness, not because Gumbald deserves forgiveness in any simple sense, but because she recognises the war as the thing she has been building toward for 800 years, the consequence of running a kingdom on the principle that compliance is the only acceptable relationship between citizens and rulers, that disagreement gets managed rather than engaged, that opposition gets transformed rather than addressed. She chooses to stop. Whether the stopping lasts, whether the choice is sufficient, the show leaves with you. Now let me pull back and talk about what all of this means together, because taken in isolation, each of these dark choices could be made into an argument for or against PB as a character. The fandom is split on this in ways the show encourages. The inconsistently heinous wiki is harsher than the Adventure Time character analyses blog. Both of them are working from the same evidence and arriving at different conclusions. What the show itself is doing with these secrets is more specific than either the condemnation or the defence. The Fundamentals article on PB draws the most complete picture. Bubblegum's willingness to use extreme protective measures very much matches up with Dr. Gross's desire to save humans through her improvements. She also uses her own mods for her citizens, friends, and even her enemies. Dr. Gross serves a glimpse of what Princess Bubblegum would be if she cracks. Perhaps she's our look at the Bubblegum who eventually builds the prize ball guardian. Right now, Bubblegum still maintains a bit of morality and good intention, which restrains her worst tendencies. Dr. Gross is a scientist who took a philosophy of saving people to a point where the saving required violating the people it was saving. PB is the person who hasn't crossed to Dr. Gross's point yet, and who is, throughout the show's later seasons, actively working to move away from it rather than toward it. The arc is real. The growth is real. The dark history that the arc is moving away from is also real. All of it is real simultaneously. The Adventure Time character analyses blogs most important insight. All of PB's worst behaviour happens when Finn isn't watching, or has already happened before the show begins. When Finn is present, she performs the warm, benevolent princess. When he's not, or in the past, before he arrived, she does the things the show documents as her dark history. This is not hypocrisy in the simple sense. It is the show's portrait of how a person compartmentalises. The things she does to maintain the kingdom happen in rooms Finn doesn't go into. Not because she's hiding them from him specifically, because the person who maintains the kingdom and the person who loves Finn and Jake and treats them warmly are both real and happen in different registers. The skeleton in the dungeon at the start of the first episode. She walks past it. The episode is about something else. The skeleton is real. She keeps walking. This is the show's complete statement of Princess Bubblegum's darkest secrets. They are in the frame. They are real. She knows they are there, and the world continues. The candy colours stay warm. The kingdom holds. She walks past the skeleton and keeps going, because the episode is about something else today. And the skeleton will still be there tomorrow. It was there from the beginning. All of it was always there. The skeleton and the warmth and the love and the dark choices and the growth and the specific quality of a person who has been doing something difficult and imperfect for 800 years and is still here, still running, still making choices and living with what they produced. She is not a villain. She is not simply a hero. She is a ruler who has been ruling for 800 years and has left a record, and the record is exactly as complicated as 800 years of difficult choices in a difficult world should be. That's the darkest secret. Not any specific act, the whole record. 800 years of it, and her continued presence in the kingdom she built. And that was built on all of it. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. This one was important to get right. Subscribe if you haven't. It keeps us making these and means everything. And if you can't sleep now, if you're thinking about Cinnamon Bun, not knowing who he actually is, or the robots that face the wall, or Neddy in the basement, or the skeleton in the dungeon she walked past in the first seconds of the first episode, that's right. That means you saw it. The warm pink princess and the skeleton in her dungeon. Both real. Both always there. Good night. Expansion. Aye. Her nature and the full weight of what she is. Let me spend more time on what Bubblegum fundamentally is, because I think the specifics of her nature inform every dark choice she makes, and most analyses skip past this to get to the actions. She emerged from a hive mind. Before she was Bubblegum, there was the Mother Gum, a vast mass of sentient pink goo, collectively conscious, present but not individuated. She differentiated from this. She became a separate consciousness that could say, I and mean something specific by it. She became a person. This is not a metaphor. This is her literal origin story. What this means, she once was not a person. She was part of something that was collective, that experienced the world through distributed awareness rather than individual perspective. And then she wasn't. She became discrete. She became singular. And the hive mind she came from is still in the basement of the palace tree, breathing slowly, existing as it always existed. The adventure time. Wiki on PB confirms she had missed the experience of being surrounded by others she could control as she had been before leaving the mother gum. She missed it. She was part of something that controlled and was controlled, where the distinction between self and other was porous. And she left that for individuation, and she missed it. The candy people she creates are, in some psychological sense, the hive mind she left. They are beings she can surround herself with, who exist in a kind of collective relationship to her, dependent on her, responsive to her, controlled by her presence in ways that echo the mother gum's original structure. This reading doesn't excuse the compliance engineering, but it contextualizes it as something more than pure political calculation. There's a longing in it, a woman who individuated from a collective mind, who built a new collective around herself and couldn't quite stop herself from reaching for some of the old dynamic. The candy people are not the mother gum, but they are the closest thing to it she could build. And Neddy, her brother, who was born alongside her from the same gum and was immediately traumatised by the sharp rock and withdrew into a permanent state of primitive comfort-seeking. Neddy is the version of her that didn't individuate, or that individuated differently into a form that seeks the most regressive possible comfort, suckling on the roots of the candy tree, getting the raw material, existing in the simplest form of being in the world. She built her whole civilization around him. The palace tree is specifically positioned so that Neddy's suckling produces the juice that flows through the kingdom. She built her world so that her brother's trauma produces the thing her people need for healing. This is love, and it is also something else, the most vulnerable and broken part of her origin, embedded in the infrastructure of everything she built. She cannot help Neddy. She cannot fix him. She cannot make him okay, but she built around him so that even being the way he is connected to something larger. She built the Candy Kingdom so that Neddy's withdrawal from the world has meaning, so that his loss is also somehow the kingdom's sustenance. The Grokopedia article notes that Bubblegum possesses magical powers of candy manipulation as the current candy elemental, one of the four beings who embody the world's fundamental principles. She is the candy elemental. This is not just a job title. It means something cosmological. She is the living principle of the candy element in the current cycle. The candy, the sweetness, the preservation of flavour, the specific warmth of the colour is not just what she's made of. It is what she embodies in the universe's elemental framework. She is, in a cosmic sense, the sweetness, and the sweetness is real. And everything else we've been talking about tonight is also real. Both things. In the same person. Her scientific philosophy is relevant here. The Fanon wiki entry notes. She expresses an open disdain for magic, labelling it as science presented like mystical hoodoo. She believes in science. She believes that the observable, the measurable, the reproducible are the foundations of understanding. She applies this framework to everything, to candy biology, to kingdom management, to the beings she creates, and the problems she faces. The lemon grabs are failures of the recipe. The Gumble Guards' violence is an engineering problem. Flame Princess's fire giants are a threat to be neutralised through operational means. This philosophy produces some of her worst choices. When Lemon Grab screams at someone, the scientific framework asks, what does the recipe need to be adjusted to prevent this, rather than what does this being need to not be in this much pain? When the Fire Kingdom poses a potential threat, the scientific framework asks, what is the most efficient mechanism for neutralising the threat, rather than what does it mean to covertly destabilise a sovereign nation? The scientific framework optimises for outcomes without always asking whether the path to the outcome is permissible. The Lady Geek Girl article identifies this as mad scientist energy. Some of her experiments deliberately push the boundaries of what's right and wrong. The mad scientist framing is usually comedic in Adventure Time. She's the good-hearted, brilliant inventor who sometimes goes a bit too far in pursuit of the perfect sandwich or the ideal hair. But at the scale of the Candy Kingdom and the 800 years of her rule, the going a bit too far has produced a genocide of robots, a trauma-sustained infrastructure, a kingdom of people designed not to think too hard, centuries of political opposition transformed into cheerful background characters, and a surveillance room that looked exactly like Batman's expansion. B. The full history of her relationship with Flame Princess. The Flame Princess situation is one of PB's most sustained examples of what a security obsession produces when applied to a specific person across a long period of time, and it deserves the full treatment. The sequence begins before the show. The Flame King tells Bubblegum that his newborn daughter is evil like a newborn star, volatile and striving to burn down the world. This is a king describing his infant child as an existential threat. PB's response is to tell him to contain her, put her in a jar, keep her away from people. The inconsistently heinous wiki confirms this as a documented act. The Adventure Time character Analysis blog mounts the partial defence. The princess respects the rule of other kingdoms and does not interfere unless it's absolutely necessary. She had no right adopting the princess of the Fire Kingdom without consulting her father. And there's something to this. PB's consistent respect for kingdom sovereignty means she typically doesn't intervene in the internal affairs of other rulers. When the Flame King told her about his daughter, the normal PB response would be to defer to his judgment about his own kingdom. But this was not a normal situation. This was a father asking for advice about an infant who had not yet committed any harm. And PB's advice was imprisonment. 15 years of isolation in a lamp, as the eventual revelation confirms. Whatever the sovereignty argument, the child experienced 15 years of isolation in a lamp and then struggled significantly with socialization when finally released. The show does not present this as PB's fault alone. The Flame King made the choice and could have made a different one, but she recommended it. Her specific expertise and authority gave her recommendation weight. The king might have made a different choice without her input. The specific fear underneath the recommendation. If Flame Princess really is what the Flame King described, she could burn the Candy Kingdom. A fire being of sufficient power, raised without appropriate moral development in proximity to a Candy Kingdom. The threat is logical. PB's reasoning, if articulated, would probably be, I have these people to protect. The Flame King is telling me his daughter is dangerous. Safest option for the kingdom I'm responsible for is to ensure she doesn't develop in the direction of that danger. The logic holds. The outcome for the child is 15 years alone in a lamp. Earth and Water, Season 5, PB's experiments on Flame Princess, with her consent, to understand and help manage her powers. The Lady Geek Girl blog. Flame Princess was a willing subject for these experiments. This is true. FP agreed to participate. The consent is real. And the experiments are PB doing something genuinely helpful, trying to understand the nature of a being she had previously only feared, trying to give that being tools for self-understanding. The same scientist who recommended the imprisonment is now using her science to help the imprisoned person understand herself. Growth is real. It doesn't erase what came before. The cooler revisited. We've covered this, but I want to add the specific visual from the TV tropes recap. When Princess Bubblegum is looking at her spy cameras, you can catch glimpses of Ice King looking into the camera, starchy, ready to grave dig, and a candy person lying face down on the ground with other candy people panicking. her surveillance room, shows her own citizens in distress, and she's watching, rather than responding. She's watching everything, every kingdom, every citizen, every potential threat. And the act of watching has become so totalizing that a candy person lying face down on the ground is just one more data point among thousands. Flame Princess calls her a bad person. The show holds on PB's face. The Adventure Time reviewed blog. You can see the wheels turning in PB's brain. The accusation lands, and the specific quality of PB's response to having the surveillance room dismantled is the show's most hopeful moment in this arc. She doesn't argue, she doesn't justify. She hears the accusation, and she accepts that it's accurate, and she takes the room apart. This is the thing about PB's growth arc. It is not fast, and it is not clean, and it does not erase the record, but it is real. By the time of the series finale, she is someone who can choose forgiveness over war, who can look at what she built and say, I need to do this differently. The dark secrets are real. The growth away from them is also real, both simultaneously. Expansion, C, the election, loss and what it reveals. Season 6, episode 39. Hot Diggity Doom. PB is deposed as ruler of the Candy Kingdom following an election. The Wikipedia entry, Bubblegum is deposed as ruler following an election, where she realises she has made the candy people too unintelligent. This is the show's most specific statement of the self-defeating nature of PB's control. She designed her citizens to be compliant, happy, and disinclined toward political sophistication. And then they have a democratic election, and they vote for the King of Ooh, a transparent fraud who arrives with no credentials and a lot of charisma and tells them what they want to hear. The Adventure Time character analyses blog notes. She makes the candy people too unintelligent. The election is a consequence of a choice she made centuries ago. The King of Ooh is a con artist. His platform is empty. His qualifications are non-existent. And the candy people vote for him because nobody taught them to evaluate political claims. Because the ruler who designed their intellectual architecture chose to leave out the sustained critical inquiry that would allow them to recognise fraud. She is deposed by the consequences of her own design. This is one of the show's most specifically pointed political observations. Authoritarian control implemented through the manipulation of citizens' intellectual capacities produces populations who are vulnerable to populist fraud. You cannot make your people incapable of questioning you without also making them incapable of questioning the next person who comes along with a compelling story. The protection you built for yourself against resistance becomes the mechanism of your own removal. PB's response to losing the election is characteristic. She accepts it. She is genuinely distressed. She loves the kingdom, and she believes the King of Ooh will damage it. And she's right about that, but she does not mount a coup. She does not use the Gumball Guardians to override the democratic result. She respects the process, even a process that produced a result she believes is wrong, even a process she herself broke by designing the voters to be this way. This is the show's argument about PB at her best. She is capable of respecting constraints on her own power, even when those constraints cost her something significant. The compliance engineering was wrong. The election loss is the consequence. She lives with the consequence rather than overriding it. That's not heroism. It's the minimum requirement of someone who claims to believe in the institutions she runs, but it's real. And it matters, and the show acknowledges it as real and mattering. Expansion, the biomass situation in full depth. The biomass consumption deserves more space than it usually gets in analyses of PB's dark history, because it is the most structurally disturbing element of what she is, and because it's so consistently under-examined. Adam Muto confirmed it. The showrunner confirmed that when Princess Bubblegum takes pieces of candy people in video makers and Mortal Folly, it is to replace lost candy biomass. She needs the material her body is made of to maintain herself, and when she loses it, she replenishes it from the most available source, her citizens. The Adventure Time wiki on Princess Bubblegum is careful about this. She can deform and reform her biomass, through which she can regain lost body parts and fluctuate her biological age. The biomass consumption is how she regains lost parts. The amounts she takes are small. The candy people are candy, and they regenerate. In the show's own biological terms, the harm is minimal, but the image is not minimal. The ruler who designed her people to be compliant and dependent and unable to question her authority also, when she needs to, takes pieces of them. It's not predation in any meaningful sense. She doesn't hunt them. She doesn't harm them significantly. The amounts are trivial, but the relationship between PB's body and her citizens' bodies is literally consumptive. She replenishes herself from them. They are, in the most fundamental biological sense, the material she is made of, and she can draw on that material when she needs to. The show never comments on this. It is background detail confirmed by production notes rather than episode content. But the production notes are real. The confirmation is real. The ruler eats her subjects when she needs the biomass, and the show told you this and then moved on. The skeleton in the dungeon was put there on purpose. So was the biomass consumption. Both are part of the same portrait. A woman who genuinely loves her people and who relates to them in ways that are not always fully separable from use. The love is real. The use is also real. Both things in the same ruler, about the same people. Expansion-y, the full ledger of what she's created and what happened to it. Let me compile the full ledger of what Princess Bubblegum has made across 800 years and what happened to each thing, because the pattern is revealing. The first candy people, created, rebelled, turned into monsters, still somewhere in Gumbold. Created as family, turned on her, turned into Punch Bowl by Dum Dum Juice, spent centuries as cheerful background character, restored, went to war, was turned back into Punch Bowl. Lolly, created as family, turned on her, turned into Mr. Cake, spent centuries as Mr. Cake, eventually restored, chose to side with PB, reconciled. Jickle, created as family, turned on her, turned into Cinnamon Bun, spent centuries as Cinnamon Bun. Eventually, Cinnamon Bun's restoration status is not fully clear in the show. He may still be Cinnamon Bun. The Banana Guards, created as law enforcement, inadequate, maintained for centuries in their inadequacy, because inadequate but loyal is preferable to competent but autonomous. The Gumball Guard, created as elite law enforcement, too effective, built illegal fighting ring, killed via counting off trick on crushing platform, remains became furniture. Lemon Grab 1, created as heir, recipe wrong, given his own kingdom, developed into tyrant, given a clone companion, eventually absorbed the clone, ruled the earldom in combined monstrous form, destroyed during Lemon Hope's liberation of the Lemon people. Lemon Grab 2, created as companion for Lemon Grab 1, gentle and caring, gradually absorbed / eaten by Lemon Grab 1, destroyed. Lemon Grab 3, created from combined remains of the other. Lemon Grabs after their destruction. Status in the post-finale world, not fully specified. The Lemon Children, created by the Lemon Grabs using PB's formula, born into starvation, traumatized, freed by Lemon Hope, surviving in the post-Lemon Hope world. Goliad, created as immortal heir using PB's DNA, developed tyrant philosophy, within hours locked in eternal psychic combat with Stormo near the Candy Kingdom. Still there, Stormo, created from Finn's DNA to counter Goliad, sacrificed himself to the eternal psychic duel, still in the duel, still there. James, sent into a dangerous situation, died heroically, cloned without consent, posthumously. Clones became zombies, zombie clones, banished to Wasteland. The James clones, 25 of them, zombie, banished to a wasteland by the woman who made them. The Candy people of the second generation, created with designed compliance, designed to be incapable of sustained critical inquiry still living in the kingdom under their designed conditions, some of them possibly still carrying tracking chips. The candy bioforms sent into space, sent to colonize planets by growing inside organic beings, pulled back when the targets turned out to be sentient. The pattern across this ledger is not complicated. She creates. What she creates frequently turns on her, or goes wrong, or becomes something she didn't plan for, or becomes something she has to destroy, or contain, or manage indefinitely. She responds to each problem with a solution that produces another problem. The first candy people rebel, so she engineers compliance. The Gumball Guard becomes autonomous, so she crushes them. Goliad becomes a tyrant, so she makes Stormo. The lemon grab's suffering is addressed by making another lemon grab, which escalates the suffering. Every solution creates a new problem. The new problem is addressed by a new solution. 800 years of this. The ledger grows, the consequences accumulate. The kingdom holds because PB holds it, and she holds it through a combination of genuine love and accumulated dark choices that have produced a world she has to keep managing, because the management is what keeps it from falling apart. This is not a condemnation, it is a portrait. This is what it looks like to build something from scratch, without a guide, for 800 years, without anyone empowered to tell you when you've gone wrong. The ledger is what the ledger is. The kingdom is real and is built on all of it. Expansion F. What makes her growth real and why it matters. I want to spend time on PB's growth because the dark law shouldn't be the only thing we take from this portrait. The growth is real and it deserves its own honest accounting. The Growcopedia article. This progression underscores a causal link between her immortality, spanning over 800 years, and increasing detachment, where initial enthusiasm yields to paranoia, exemplified by widespread surveillance. The trajectory from enthusiasm to paranoia is real, but so is the trajectory back. Varmints, Season 7, Episode 2, aired November 2nd, 2015. PB and Marceline going to dig up varmints in PB's old pumpkin patch. PB talking, without directly saying so, about what it cost to become the ruler she became, about having to give up the person who grew pumpkins for the person who runs a kingdom, about the specific choices that gradually accumulated into the distance between who she was and who she needed to be. This is PB doing something she rarely does, admitting a cost, not excusing a choice, not justifying a policy, but acknowledging that something was given up. The election loss and its aftermath. She accepts the result of a democratic process that she herself broke, and she uses the period of exile from power to examine what she became. When she is reinstated, she is measurably different. The surveillance state doesn't come back in the same form. The relationship with Marceline begins moving toward resolution. She starts engaging with the candy people's capacity to question her rather than managing it away. The specific admission in Bonnibel Bubblegum. Season 9, when the gumballed history is revealed. She doesn't defend herself to Finn. She looks at what she did, and she doesn't make the full justification available. The episode allows her to have been scared, to have been responding to a real threat, and also to have done something wrong. She holds both. The show holds both for her. That's growth. The ability to look at the thing you did without immediately reframing it into something acceptable. The cooler's conclusion. She takes the surveillance room apart. Not because she's forced to, not because someone held her accountable with consequences, because Flame Princess told her it made her a bad person and she heard it. The mechanism of her accountability is other people's honesty with her, which requires other people to be willing to be honest with her, which requires her to create the conditions under which honesty is possible. The cooler is the show documenting the first time that Chain worked correctly, the series finale's choice, faced with the Great Gum War, the full consequence of her founding choices, arriving in the form of Gumball's army. PB wakes from a shared dream and chooses forgiveness rather than the battle she's prepared for. Not because the battle was wrong to prepare for, not because Gumball's grievances are invalid, but because she recognises that fighting this war would be continuing the pattern, and she wants to stop continuing the pattern. Come Along With Me gives PB the most hopeful possible frame for what her 800 years of dark choices produced. A person who has learned enough to choose differently at the moment that matters most. The ledger is still the ledger. The Gumball Guard are still cubes of metal. Cinnamon Bun may still not know who he was. Goliad and Stormo are still in their duel. The consequences of the founding choices persist and will persist. But she is no longer making those choices. She is, in the finale, making different ones. The post-finale glimpse in Obsidian shows her and Marceline, domestic and established. Photo booth pictures on the fridge, matching tattoos on their wrists. The woman who spent 800 years building and managing and controlling is now, for the first time we can see, living, not ruling, living. This is what the growth produced, not the erasure of the dark history, but the first real evidence that the pattern can break, that she can be someone other than the person the ledger describes. Both the ledger and the person after the ledger are real. Both are her, the skeleton in the dungeon and the photo booth. Strip on the fridge, the same woman. Expansion. G, the prize ball. Guardian, and what the distant future says. The Fundamentals article on PB noted, Grayball's 1000 plus shows a future where a gigantic prize ball guardian keeps the residents of the Candy Kingdom inside prize balls. This detail is in the far future sequence of the show, thousands of years from the present of the main series. The Candy Kingdom metropolis, enormous and advanced, guarded by a massive version of the Gumball Guardian that keeps residents inside prize balls. The residents of the far future Candy Kingdom are not free to move. They're enclosed. They're in balls. The protective structure built by PB's impulse to keep her people safe has, thousands of years later, grown into something that physically contains them. The trajectory she was on, designed, compliance, surveillance cameras, tracking chips, the Fire Kingdom sabotage, the Gumball Guard crush, extrapolated far enough forward in time, arrived at this. Prize balls. The show doesn't show PB causing this. She may be long gone by the time the prize ball guardian exists. The guardian may be a later design by later rulers who inherited her institutional legacy without her specific conscience, but the trajectory is hers. The institution she built, operating without her moderating presence, ran forward along the logic she established, and the logic ran forward far enough, produced enclosed citizens. The Fundamentals article uses this to make the comparison with Dr. Gross explicit. Bubblegum's willingness to use extreme protective measures very much matches up with Dr. Gross's desire to save humans through her improvements. Dr. Gross improved humans against their will to protect them from threats. The improvements required consent that wasn't obtained because the protection was too urgent to wait for consent. PB has done versions of this. The trajectory, from where she is to where Dr. Gross is, runs through the same logic. Protection is the priority. Consent is secondary. The ends justify means that the ends eventually cannot justify. The show presents this as a warning, not a certainty. The PB at the end of the main series has been disrupting this trajectory. The Obsidian PB has moved further from it. The post-Obsidian PB, whatever she has been doing in the years between the finale and the far future glimpse, we hope has moved further still. But the prize ball guardian exists. The future is showing you where the institution points if it runs unchecked, and the institution is hers. She built it. The institution remembers even when the builder changes. Expansion H, the specific texture of her relationship with Finn. Princess Bubblegum's relationship with Finn is a significant piece of her dark history that doesn't usually get analysed as such. And I think it deserves honesty. She used his feelings for her, not coldly, not cynically, but she was aware that Finn had feelings for her, and she did not consistently act to address them directly. She kept him close. She gave him assignments. She deployed his heroism and his devotion in ways that were useful to her and to the kingdom. And she did not have the direct conversation about why a relationship wasn't something she was available for in any form that allowed him to process it and move on for a very long time. The adventure, time character, analyses, blog notes. Have you noticed that all the parties in her land are more or less in Finn's honour? The Candy Kingdom frequently celebrates Finn, honours him, includes him in events that reinforce his connection to PB and the kingdom. This is partly genuine appreciation. He genuinely is the kingdom's most important defender, but it is also functionally the mechanism that keeps him invested, that maintains his motivation to keep fighting for the Candy Kingdom, that deepens his attachment to a woman who is never going to be what he hoped she would be. The show is not harsh about this. It presents PB as genuinely caring about Finn and not deliberately manipulating him. But the pattern is there. She benefits from his devotion. She does not consistently disrupt it, even when disrupting it would be kinder. The Vault episode, where she laughs nervously and is embarrassed about her age when Finn confronts her, she has kept her full history secret from him. Hundreds of years of context, of choices, of accumulated dark acts and bright ones that he has no access to. He's fighting for a woman whose history he doesn't know, whose age he only discovers by accident in the 5th season, whose founding acts remain mostly invisible to him throughout the run of the show. The relationship between them is genuine and asymmetric. She knows everything about what it means to be what she is, and he knows almost nothing. And the relationship has been running on that asymmetry for the entire time he's known her. By the finale, this has shifted enough that the relationship between them is more honest. But the imbalance was there throughout. The warm, pink princess and a 12-year-old champion, and her 800 years of history he never quite fully knew. That's Princess Bubblegum. All of it. The dungeon skeleton and the photo booth. Pictures and the gumball guard cubes in the barracks and the biomass. And Cinnamon Bun, who might still not know who he was. And Goliad, frozen in psychic combat near the gate, and Neddy, breathing in the basement. All of it in the same woman. 800 years of it. Still going. Good night. Expansion on every episode that reveals something dark about PB. Let me go through the specific episodes in order, the ones that build the dark portrait of Princess Bubblegum, and give each one the focused attention it deserves. Because the pattern only emerges when you see all of the episodes together. Slumber Party Panic. Season 1, Episode 1. She accidentally creates candy zombies, trying to resurrect dead candy people. The show doesn't present this as sinister. It's comedy, an accident. She didn't know the experiment would go this way, but the experiment itself is worth pausing on. She was trying to bring back the dead. She was doing this in her laboratory as an apparent research project. The zombie crisis is played as a consequence of scientific hubris, applied without sufficient caution. And the solution she devises requires lying to her people about what's happening, because they would explode if they knew. The first episode establishes she experiments on things that have serious consequences, and she handles the consequences by managing information rather than by being transparent. The Duke, Season 1, Episode 19. The Duke of Nuts is suspected of ruining PB's appearance, turning her green, and of eating the royal pudding. She proposes radical punishment, life imprisonment in the dungeon, forever. The Duke is eventually cleared. The crime was an accident, but her immediate response to a suspected offence against her was to propose permanent imprisonment. The response is disproportionate, and the show does not ignore this. The whole episode is about the disproportionality, but she proposed it. Her first instinct, when she felt wronged, was permanent dungeon. What have you done? Season 2, Episode 13. PB needs the Ice King to scream. She kidnaps him under false pretenses, does various things to make him uncomfortable and upset, trying to get genuine screams to develop a cure for the freezer burn flu. the inconsistently heinous Wiki. She tortured the Ice King by breaking his pinkies to extract screams. The pinkies. The show's specific detail about the torture is the breaking of small bones in his hands, the kind of injury that is painful and incapacitating without being life-threatening, the kind that a scientist who needed screams and who had an old man who wouldn't cooperate might calculate as the minimum to sufficient harm. She calculated it. She did it. And when Finn and Jake found out, she was visibly ashamed. The broader context. She was solving a genuine crisis. The freezer burn flu was spreading. People were getting sick. She had identified a cure that required Ice King's cooperation. And Ice King was not cooperating. The utilitarian math pointed clearly in one direction. And the utilitarian math is often how PB makes decisions. She is a scientist with a kingdom to protect, and she optimizes for outcomes. The problem is that optimizing for outcomes sometimes produces choices that are wrong, regardless of the outcome they're optimizing for. Burning Low, Season 4, Episode 16. PB manipulates Finn into believing he needs to break up with Flame Princess by telling him she is a global threat. This becomes more complicated as the episode develops, but the initial action is PB intervening in Finn's romantic life by presenting risk information in a way that is framed as a concern for global safety. But that is also, the show acknowledges at least partly about something else. The Adventure Time character analyses blog notes this as one of the episodes where PB's behaviour around Finn requires close reading. You Made Me, Season 3, Episode 24, Lemon Grab confronting PB about his loneliness. This is the episode where the most direct statement of her responsibility for what he is gets made. He tells her, "I look in the lemon heart you gave me and see my lemon way to act." And that must be right. He has been made wrong, and he has been told implicitly that however he is correct because she made him that way. The whole episode is PB being confronted with the specific costs of her hair creation strategy and her solution. Making another lemon grab is a solution that will eventually lead to Too Old. Princess Cookie, Season 4, Episode 13. A cookie person named Baby Snaps takes hostages and demands to be princess. The flashback. He saw PB visiting an orphanage as a child, was moved by her presence, said he wanted to be like her. She told him it wasn't realistic and redirected his aspiration. He spent his life unable to let go of the identity she told him wasn't available to him. The episode ends with him in a mental institution, wearing a crown in his cell, apparently at peace. PB is not directly blamed in the episode. She was being kind, she was trying to be helpful. She said the thing that adults say to children with unrealistic dreams, but the consequence for this specific child was 20 or 30 years of crisis. The warm pink princess visited an orphanage, and the kindest thing she said broke a child. The Vault, Season 5, Episode 34. Finn confronts PB about her age. She laughs nervously. She is embarrassed. She was not going to tell him the specific information she has been keeping secret from him. She is over 800 years old. She knew his past life. Shoko stole from her. Shoko's skeleton is in the floorboards of the treehouse where Finn sleeps. She has been keeping all of this from him, not maliciously. She hasn't brought it up because bringing it up would require her to discuss things she would rather not discuss. But the effect is that Finn has been living above the skeleton of his own past life without knowing it, in a relationship with a woman who knew all of this history and kept it to herself. James, Season 5, Episode 22, as we've discussed. And James II, which reveals the extent of the cloning operation and a decision to banish the zombie clones to the wasteland. Goliad, Season 4, Episode 22, as we've discussed. And the subsequent episodes' establishment. Goliad and Stormo are still in their stalemate permanently. Rattleballs, Season 5, Episode 46, as we've discussed. The crushing platform. No peeking. The Cooler, Season 6, Episode 22, as we've discussed. The Manufactured Crisis. The Fire Kingdom destabilization. the deaths on screen. The Nemesis, Season 6, Episode 40. The inconsistently heinous wiki notes. She tortured the Ice King by breaking his pinkies so that she could get the password to Wizard City. This is listed separately from the "What have you done?" situation, suggesting it is a different incident. Multiple instances of using Ice King as a resource, causing him harm when he doesn't cooperate. The pattern of using him as a tool while nominally trying to help him. The show is aware of this and occasionally calls it out. You forgot your floaties, and related magic-adjacent episodes. PB's consistent dismissal of magic as mystical hoodoo is a form of epistemological arrogance that occasionally costs her. The show doesn't make her wrong about science. Science works in her scientific approach produces real results. But the dismissal of magic as a valid category of knowledge means she consistently underestimates magical threats and magical approaches. It is the blind spot of a brilliant scientist who has been successful enough with her approach to stop questioning whether the approach has limits. The candy sent into space in Season 8. The Fundamentals article describes this as PB sending candy bioforms that invade and grow inside of organic beings to colonize planets. This is expansion through biological conquest. Her candy overwriting whatever exists somewhere else. The intent is presumably the preservation and spread of candy civilization, the protection of her people's legacy. The mechanism is invasion at the cellular level. When she discovers the targets are sentient, she retreats, but she had already sent them. The retreat is real. The prior action was also real. Expansion. J, the specific quality of her love and why it makes the dark choices worse. The hardest thing about Princess Bubblegum's dark secrets is not that she is loveless or cynical or genuinely malicious. The hardest thing is that she is none of those things. She genuinely loves her people. The love is real and visible and consistent, and the love is precisely what makes the dark choices so difficult to sit with, because the love is the motive. Every dark choice she made comes from the love, the designed compliance. She made her people this way because she was afraid for them, afraid of what would happen to them if they could be turned against her the way Gumball tried to turn her. The surveillance state, she installed cameras because she was terrified of losing them to something she hadn't anticipated and didn't see coming. The torture, she tortured Ice King because her people were dying, and she needed what he had, the Fire Kingdom sabotage. She destabilised a sovereign nation because Flame Princess's brother was genuinely extremist about weapons that could kill the Candy people. The crushing of the Gumball Guard. They were using violence in ways she hadn't authorised, and she was responsible for the harm they might cause. All of it. From love. From a woman who loves what she built and loves who she built it for, and will do almost anything to protect it. And the love operating without adequate constraint, without sufficient external accountability, without anyone empowered to tell her that what she is doing is wrong, produces everything on the ledger. The love is the fuel. The dark choices are what the fuel burns. This is why the adventure, time character analyses Tumblr blog is right to resist the simpler reading. The idiots are the only ones that remained because the others were systematically killed. The darker reading of the Candy People's compliance, which is circulated in various forms, overstates the cynicism. She didn't design her people stupid as a calculated political strategy from a place of indifference to them. She designed them that way from fear after the first generation's rebellion, from the specific terror of a person who had tried to do something beautiful and watched it turn against her. The fear produced a choice she shouldn't have made. The choice was not the act of a tyrant who views her people as tools. It was the act of someone who loves too much and doesn't know what to do with the love when it isn't enough. The Fundamentals article captures this in the comparison to Minerva Campbell, Finn's biological mother. There is also a strong comparison to be made between Minerva's decision to upload her consciousness into the Minerva bots and Princess Bubblegum's creation of Goliad. In both cases, a fear of death, and specifically the consequences their citizens would face, is responsible for their actions. They even both made the decision because of a sickness. Love of a community, fear of what happens to the community. Without the protector, a decision that goes too far. The same structure in both cases. PB creating Goliad and Minerva, uploading herself to bots. Are both acts of love that the love can't quite justify. The show's framing for all of this is not condemnation. It is not defence. It is the most honest possible portrait of what happens when a genuinely good person has too much power and too little accountability for too long. The good and the dark are not in contradiction. They are the same person's responses to the same situation across 800 years. The love and the control and the surveillance room and the photo booth pictures on the fridge. All of it the same person, all of it real. The skeleton in the dungeon at the start of the first episode. She walks past it. The candy colours stay warm. The dungeon is also real. That's Princess Bubblegum's darkest secrets. Not despite her love, but because of it. Through it. From it. And eventually, slowly, growing away from the darkest consequences of it, without ever erasing the record of what the love, operating without constraint, produced. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. This one felt important to get fully right. Subscribe if you haven't. It keeps us making these. And if you can't sleep, if you're thinking about Cinnamon Bun not knowing who he was, or the no peeking counting robots, or the skeleton she walked past on the first day, good. That means you were paying attention. Good night. Expansion. The political philosophy embedded in PB's governance. Adventure Time's critics and the academic adjacent fan analysis community have spent a lot of time identifying the political philosophy embedded in Princess Bubblegum's governance. And this work is worth engaging with directly because it reveals something about what the show was actually saying with her dark choices. The Player One article on the Cooler compared her to Christopher Nolan's Batman. Princess Bubblegum and Adventure Time are more responsible with power than Christopher Nolan and his torture-loving NSA phone-tapping Batman. The comparison is instructive. Batman, in The Dark Knight, builds a surveillance system that monitors every cell phone in Gotham. He uses this to catch the Joker. He then destroys it, but the destruction feels performed rather than principled, and the film doesn't fully interrogate the act of building it. PB builds her surveillance room, operates it for an extended period, causes tangible harm with it, and then dismantles it when confronted with the moral reality of what she's doing. The dismantling feels earned in a way that Batman's doesn't. But she also built it, she also ran it, she also used it to destabilise a foreign nation. The Psycho Drive-In review of The Cooler describes PB's governance as Machiavellian. PB knows that Phoebe will contact her for help, and she uses that opportunity to disarm them. Well, almost. The specific mechanism of the Fire Kingdom operation is Machiavellian in the technical sense. She manufactured the conditions that would make the outcome she wanted possible, using deception and the manipulation of her enemy's trust for a goal she believed was genuinely protective. Machiavelli's argument is precisely that a ruler sometimes must use means that are wrong in themselves to produce outcomes that protect the ruled. PB implements this argument. The show then holds her accountable for it in a way that Machiavelli didn't fully anticipate. The person she deceived calls her a bad person, and the accusation is accurate, and PB has to live with that. The political science reading of PB's governance identifies a specific trajectory, benevolent paternalism, which is what her governance looks like in the early seasons. Transitions under pressure into surveillance state authoritarianism, which is what the 6th season documents, and then, after accountability, begins transitioning towards something more genuinely democratic. The transition is not complete by the finale. The candy people are still designed with engineered compliance. The tracking chips may still be in them. The institutional legacy of 800 years of paternalistic rule cannot be undone in a few seasons of growth arc, but the trajectory of the arc from the finale forward is pointed in a more honest direction. The Adventure Time character Analyses blog asks the right question about PB's design compliance. Why would she make the banana guards so incompetent If she were purely a cynical ruler, optimizing for control, the banana guards would be more effective. They are not, they are useless. This suggests the compliance engineering was not a complete system, deliberately designed from the top down, but something more organic, a fear response, applied going forward after the first generation's rebellion, leaving the existing failures, the banana guards, created before the calibration, in place, while adjusting the recipe for subsequent creation. This is actually a more damning picture than the pure, cynical calculation would be. Pure calculation would have been consistent and would have been motivated by clear self-interest. What PB actually did was messier. She responded to a specific trauma with a specific overcorrection, and the overcorrection became the template. And she kept applying the template because it worked, in the narrow sense of preventing further rebellion, while never asking whether the prevention itself was a form of harm. The academic paper on PB's governance, cited in various fan analyses but not always precisely sourced, describes her as exemplifying benevolent authoritarianism, a governance style characterised by genuine care for the governed, combined with an unwillingness to allow the governed agency over their own conditions. The care is real. The authoritarianism is also real. They are not contradictions, they are the specific combination that benevolent authoritarianism requires. You have to genuinely believe in the people you govern to maintain the fiction that the control is for their benefit. PB genuinely believes in her people. The control is nonetheless control. Expansion. L. How the show tells you about PB without showing you. One of the most sophisticated things Adventure Time does with Princess Bubblegum's dark history is how it distributes the revelation. Some of it is shown directly. Some of it is told by the banana guards as gossip. Some of it is confirmed in production notes rather than episode content. Some of it is implied by what the show shows without narrating. The banana guards' gossip function in the show is specifically designed for this. It allows dark historical information to be presented without being dramatised. It is revealed by the banana guards that the first candy people turned on PB and she turned them into monsters. This is in an episode about something else entirely, delivered by characters whose narrative function is comic incompetence in the form of workplace gossip. You have to be paying attention to catch it. If you're not paying attention, it's just funny banana men saying things. The production confirmation method, Adam Muto confirming the biomass consumption, Andy Ristino describing the subway commuters. For the Mushroom War, various production notes that flesh out things the episodes imply without stating, allows the show to distribute information at multiple levels of engagement. Casual viewers don't need to know about the biomass. Deep engagement fans who read production interviews discover it, and it reframes everything they've seen. The show was built for both audiences simultaneously, and the dark PB history was calibrated so that the deepest and most disturbing revelations were available to the most engaged viewers without being forced on the more casual ones. The skeleton in the dungeon on day one. Pendleton Ward confirmed it was intentional. He did not confirm it in an episode. He confirmed it in an interview. The skeleton is in the show. The confirmation that it's intentional is outside the show. You can watch the first episode 100 times and either notice the skeleton because you're paying attention, or not notice it because the episode is about something else. Either response is valid. The show put it there for those who look. The specific thing this reveals about how Adventure Time wants you to engage with PB. She rewards sustained attention. The casual engagement produces the warm pink princess who loves science and her people and makes mistakes but means well. The sustained engagement, the tracking of every episode, the reading of production notes, the following of the gossip threads, produces the full portrait with the skeleton in the dungeon and the counting off mechanism and the dungeon with the skeleton in it and all the rest, Both portraits are accurate. The show is not hiding the dark portrait. It is distributing it across multiple levels of engagement. This is also the show's most honest statement about how power works in the real world. The warm public face and the dark institutional history coexist, and how much of each you see depends on how hard you look. The Candy people don't look hard. They were designed not to. The audience, unlike the Candy people, was given the option of looking, and what they find when they look is what is always there: expansion. What all of this means for the finale and beyond. Let me close by tracing what PB's dark history means for how you read the finale and the Obsidian special and the glimpses of her post-finale life. The series finale gives her three things: the confrontation with Gumbald, the choice of forgiveness over war, and the kiss with Marceline. Each of these is the resolution of a different thread of the dark history. The Gumbald confrontation, the founding choice to use dum-dum juice on her political opponents, producing the war she has to choose not to fight, the consequence she created, arriving in the most literal possible form, and her response, not fighting it, choosing to interrupt the 800-year pattern by not repeating it in the moment that invites repetition most strongly. This is not heroism. It is the minimum requirement of someone who has learned what the pattern produces, but it is real. The forgiveness of Gumbald. She does not forgive him in a speech. She wakes from a dream of the war and says she doesn't want this, and that is enough. The show doesn't make a big deal of it because it shouldn't be a big deal. Forgiving someone for trying to poison you is the right thing to do, and the show treats it as such, without spectacle, without reward. She does it and moves on. The kiss with Marceline, the completion of the arc that what was missing opened in 2011. The estrangement that came from PB becoming the Candy Kingdom at the cost of the person who grew pumpkins ended. The t-shirt in the drawer, worn as nightwear for decades, finally worn as itself. The Bubbline arc's resolution is the show saying the dark version of her is not the only version. The person who builds prisons for babies and crushes robot police forces and manufactures crises in foreign nations is also the person who kept a concert shirt because she couldn't throw it away. Both are real. The finale confirms both by confirming the love. Obsidian shows us the domestic aftermath. They are together. They are going on adventures together. They travel to the Glass Kingdom to help Glass Boy. And in the process, through the flashbacks, the full history of the relationship is laid out, including the breakup, including PB's development into the Candy Kingdom at the cost of the relationship, including her side of the pain. Woke Up is PB's perspective on the estrangement. She was also hurt. She was also abandoned in her experience of it. She was also doing the thing she did to survive. The photo booth strip on the fridge, the matching tattoos. These are PB's first visible expressions of love as art, rather than love as policy. For 800 years, her love expressed itself through the building and maintaining of structures, through the creation and protection of beings, through the control that was supposed to be care. The photo strip is something else. It is a personal, specific, indelible piece of this person in her life, treated as valuable, not because it is useful, but because it is theirs. That's new. That's growth at the level that matters most. The distant future's prize ball guardian is still out there. The institution is still running. The trajectory she established is still pointing where it points. The specific intervention she made in the finale and after, choosing forgiveness, dismantling the surveillance room, living rather than ruling, disrupts the trajectory without erasing it. The institution remembers. The ledger is the ledger. The Gumball Guard cubes are still furniture. Cinnamon Bun may still not know, but the photo strip is on the fridge. That's also real. That's also her. Both things. The whole portrait. The dungeon skeleton and the photo strip. The kingdom she built and the person she is becoming. 800 years of darkness and love, inseparable from each other. And then the first morning in centuries, where she is just here in a cave with someone she loves, with her picture on the fridge and no kingdom to run before she's had her coffee. That's the darkest secrets of Princess Bubblegum. And that's the person those secrets belong to. And that's the show that was honest enough to show you both without flinching from either. Thank you. Good night, expansion. N. The specific texture of what it means to be her. I want to spend the final section of this video doing something I haven't done yet, trying to inhabit Princess Bubblegum's perspective across the 800 years of choices we've been discussing. Not to defend those choices, to understand what they felt like from inside. She emerged from the mother gum alone, before she had anyone, before the Candy Kingdom existed, before the gumball betrayal, before Lemon Grab, before the surveillance room. She was a new consciousness in a world of ruins with no template for what to do next, with no one to tell her how to build something worth building. She had intelligence, she had the ruins around her, she had whatever memories or knowledge the mother gum passed on to its first individuated consciousness, and she started. The first candy people turned on her. The very first thing she made, the beings she made, specifically to have others around her, turned against her. Whatever specific form the rebellion took, the show doesn't document it in detail. It happened early. It happened before she had any established power base. She had just started, and the first people she created tried to take from her what she was trying to build. She responded by transforming them and starting over. The terror of that experience applied to a person who had no established emotional frameworks for processing it, probably calcified into the compliance engineering in a way she never fully interrogated again, then gumballed. She made family, and family tried to edit her. Family tried to use the tool she had used on her first citizens against her, the dum-dum juice, as a weapon against the weapons maker. She stopped him. She turned it on him, and she kept him there, walking around in her kingdom for centuries, as punch bowl, as a reminder to herself, as an act of cruelty, as something in between, something she never examined too carefully. The show implies she didn't discuss this period with anyone for a very long time. She built the Candy Kingdom on top of it and didn't bring it up. The centuries alone, before Marceline, before anyone who could be honest with her about what she was doing. She was the only person in the world with the full picture of the Candy Kingdom's history. She was the only one who knew about the first generation of monsters, the only one who knew about Gumbold and Lolly and Chickle, the only one who could see the full structure of what she was building and understand what it was built on. And she had no one to discuss this with, no peer, no equal, no person who could look at her and say, "You went too far here. What you did here was wrong." This is the structural condition that produced everything on the ledger. 800 years of power with insufficient accountability, not because she is cynical or power hungry, because she was the only one who could do what she was doing. And that meant she was the only one with the full context, and no one else was in a position to challenge her decisions with authority. Marceline was the closest thing to a peer she had, an immortal being, roughly comparable in age, present in the world for the whole period of the Candy Kingdom's founding and growth. Someone who knew PB before the kingdom was the thing it became. Someone who could remember the person who grew pumpkins, but the estrangement happened, and in the estrangement, the closest thing PB had to someone who could say, "You went too far," was gone. The near-death experience with the Lich, the Grokopedia article, a causal link between her immortality, spanning over 800 years, and increasing detachment, where initial enthusiasm yields to paranoia, exemplified by widespread surveillance. The near-death experience was the trigger for the surveillance state's most extreme form. She had believed, probably, that her immortality made her safe, not from everything, but from the mortality that threatened her kingdom through her possible absence. The Lich's possession of her shattered this. She was not safe, she could die, and the kingdom without her was the thing she could not bear to contemplate. What the near-death experience produced. The ad, the surveillance state, the tracking chips, the Fire Kingdom operation. A cascade of excessive protective measures, produced by a specific terror. She was afraid. She had reason to be afraid. And the fear, operating through 800 years of having been the only one with the full context and the authority to act on it, produced choices that the fear alone does not justify. And then Finn, a 12-year-old boy who looks at her with a specific regard of someone who sees only the warm pink princess, who has no access to the ledger, who fights for the kingdom with complete, uncomplicated devotion. There is something in her relationship with Finn that functions, probably, as a rest from the weight of the full picture. He doesn't know. When she's with him, she can almost be the character she performs, the warm scientist ruler, without the ledger pressing in. He is the one person in her world who loves her, without knowing everything she's done. The Adventure Time character analyses blog observes, why does PB keep this such a big secret from Finn? Her full age, her full history, her founding choices. She doesn't tell him because telling him would require being the full version of herself in front of someone whose regard she values, and who might, with the full picture, regard her differently. She is not lying to him. She is performing the acceptable version of herself for the one person whose acceptance feels uncomplicated. This is human and understandable, and also a form of withholding that serves her emotional needs at his expense. The things she admits in Varmints, speaking to Marceline about having to give up the pumpkin patch person to become the person who runs the kingdom. This is the closest she comes in the entire run of the show to acknowledging the full weight of what the choices cost. Not the choices themselves, not the dark ledger, but the cost to herself. She gave up something real. The person who grew pumpkins and cared about them for reasons that had nothing to do with protecting the Candy Kingdom. That person became subordinate to the ruler, and the subordination was real and permanent, and something she mourns. This is the show's most compassionate reading of her. She is also a victim of what she built. Not primarily, not in a way that excuses anything on the ledger, but she gave up something of herself to build this, and the giving up was real and cost her things she hasn't fully reckoned with. The photo strip on the fridge in obsidian, the specific image of her and Marceline in a photo booth, smiling, being there, is the thing she couldn't have when she was running the kingdom. She had to become the kingdom to protect it, and now, for the first time, she is allowed to be something else. It's tough. Her ruler's got to deal with a lot of subservient dummies. She says this to Flame Princess in the cooler, as she's helping Flame Princess investigate the cooling crisis she engineered. She says it without irony visible on the surface. She is commiserating about the difficulty of ruling populations that don't always understand what their ruler is doing for them, and the line is also the full portrait of her relationship with the Candy People. She loves them. She refers to them as dummies. She has designed them to be subservient, and she finds the combination exhausting, and she doesn't see the specific dark structure of what she's describing. She is the ruler, they are the subservient dummies. The love and the condescension are in the same sentence, in the same breath, and she doesn't notice. Flame Princess calls her a bad person in that same episode, and PB, for possibly the first time in a very long time, has to sit with that accusation from someone who has sufficient information to know what they're talking about. Flame Princess was put in a jar as a baby on PB's recommendation. Flame Princess's kingdom was destabilised by PB's covert operation. Flame Princess's trust in PB during this episode is being used by PB as cover for the destabilisation operation. And Flame Princess, who is strong and direct and not designed to be compliant, says, "You are a bad person." And PB sits with it, and she takes the room apart. That's the character. That's the whole character. The dum-dum juice, and the surveillance room, and the no-peeking mechanism, and the subservient dummies, and taking the room apart when she's told she's a bad person. All of it, one person, 800 years, built on love and on choices that love cannot justify, moving slowly and imperfectly towards something better. The skeleton in the first episode's dungeon. Pendleton Ward put it there on purpose. He put it there as the show's first statement of what it was going to be honest about. The darkness is in the frame from the beginning. It is always in the frame. The warm pink princess walks past it because the episode is about something else, and it is always about something else, and the skeleton is always there. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for looking at the skeleton. Thank you for not looking away. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Closing. The full ledger. One more time. One last time. Through the complete ledger, because the full scope of it deserves to sit in the room before we finish. A skeleton in the dungeon on the first day. First generation Candy People turned into monsters. Gumbold turned into Punch Bowl. Lolly turned into Mr. Cake. Chikel turned into Cinnamon Bun, who may still not know. The second generation, designed with engineered compliance and the explosive fear response. Lemongrab made wrong and given a kingdom instead of help. Lemongrab 2, made as company rather than as care, and then eventually absorbed. The Gumball Guard crushed on a counting platform by being told not to peek, their cubes used as furniture. Flame Princess imprisoned in a lamp as an infant on PB's recommendation. Goliad made with PB's DNA and turned into a tyrant within hours, and now frozen in eternal psychic combat with Stormo near the gate. Stormo made to die in that combat and dying. The surveillance cameras in every bedroom, the tracking chips in every citizen, the Fire Kingdom destabilised by a manufactured crisis, the Fire Kingdom deaths on screen, the Ice King's pinkies broken for screams, the James clones made without the original's consent and banished to a wasteland, the candy sent into space to grow inside organic beings, the biomass consumed from citizens when needed, Neddy in the basement, sustaining the kingdom with his permanent trauma, the Mother Gum locked in the Candy Kingdom's depths, the founding costs accumulated across 800 years, none of them undone, all of them still there, and the photo strip on the fridge, the matching tattoos, the domestic mourning in the cave, the pumpkin patch person who is still somewhere inside the person who runs the kingdom, the tears when Finn confronted the surveillance state, the room taken apart when Flame Princess called her a bad person, the forgiveness chosen over the war, the specific softness she shows only to Marceline and to Jake and to Finn in his unguarded moments, both. All of it, the same person, the same 800 years. The warm and the dark, and the love that produced both, thank you. Good night, and the skeleton in the dungeon. Still in the dungeon, always in the dungeon. In the first episode, placed there on purpose, never addressed, the episode about something else. The world continuing, the candy colours warm. That's the whole thing. Good night. One more thing. Pendleton Ward confirmed the skeleton was intentional. He said this in an interview. He didn't say it in the show. He just put a skeleton in the dungeon of the first episode and walked past it, and then confirmed years later that it was there on purpose. The show never addressed it. The skeleton never had a moment. It never got its own episode. It was never explained. It is just there in the background of the first scene of the first episode. In the dungeon, the warm pink princess walks past on her way to deal with the zombie crisis she created by accident. It is the whole character. Before the episode has started, before she has said a single word, the skeleton and the warmth and the episode about something else. That is Princess Bubblegum's darkest secret. Not Gumballed or the surveillance room or the no peeking platform or the infants in a lamp or the ledger, the skeleton in the dungeon that was always there, that the show always knew was there, that it trusted you to eventually notice. And you did. Tonight, you noticed. Thank you for being here. Good night. Appendix. Key episodes mentioned in this video. Slumber Party Panic. Season 1. Episode 1. April 5th, 2010. The Zombie Crisis. The Skeleton in the Dungeon. The Exploding Fear Response established. The first episode. The Duke. Season 1. Episode 19. PB proposes permanent imprisonment for a suspected offence. The disproportionate response to being wronged. Mortal Folly / Mortal Recoil. Season 2. Episodes 24 to 25. May 2nd, 2011. The Lich possesses PB. She nearly dies. She's rebuilt from insufficient biomass as a 13-year-old. The near-death experience that triggers the paranoid arc. What have you done? Season 2, Episode 13. PB extracts screams from Ice King, breaking his pinkies. Torture for utilitarian ends. Too young. Season 3, Episode 1, October 3rd, 2011. Lemon grab introduced. The hair problem established. What was missing? Season 3, Episode 10, September 26th, 2011. The concert t-shirt, the Bubline subtext established. Princess Cookie. Season 4, Episode 13, June 18th, 2012. Baby snaps. The child told his dream was unrealistic. The asylum. The crown in the cell. Burning low. Season 4, Episode 16. PB intervenes in Finn's romantic life, using fear about Flame Princess. Goliad Season 4, Episode 22, April 23rd, 2012. The air made from PB's DNA. A social Darwinist philosophy, developed all within hours. Stormo made and immediately sacrificing himself. Eternal psychic combat. You made me. Season 3, Episode 24, February 13th, 2012. Lemon Grab confronting PB about his loneliness. Her response: make another lemon grab. The Lich. Season 4, Episode 26, March 11th, 2013. The Lich's history. PB's crown, protecting her from his control. James. Season 5, Episode 22, October 14th, 2013. The original James sent into danger. His heroic death. The first clone made to receive the medal. The Vault. Season 5, Episode 34, September 16th, 2013. PB's full age revealed to Finn. The nervous laugh. The Shoko history. And what PB has kept from Finn. Rattleballs. Season 5, Episode 46, January 27th, 2014. Guest starring Rainn Wilson. The Gumball Guard. The No Peeking. The Crushing Platform. The Cubes of Metal. Rattleballs in the junkyard for years. His surrender. His knighting. James II. Season 5. The 25 clones. Their zombie status. The banishment to the wasteland. The Cooler. Season 6. Episode 22. December 4th, 2014. The Fire Kingdom destabilization. The manufactured crisis. The deaths on screen. Flame Princess calling PB a bad person. The surveillance room dismantled. Hot Diggity Doom. Season 6, Episode 39. The election. The King of Ooh wins. PB deposed. The consequence of designing citizens who can't evaluate political claims. Varmints. Season 7, Episode 2, November 2nd, 2015. PB and Marceline at the pumpkin patch. The admission of what ruling cost her. The beginning of the Bubline reconciliation. The thin yellow line. Season 7. The Banana Guards, revealing the first generation of candy people, were turned into monsters by PB. Bonnabelle Bubblegum. Season 9, September 17th, 2017. Gumball's history revealed. The Dum Dum Juice. The founding. Betrayal. Documented. Come along with me. Season 10, September 3rd, 2018. The series finale. Gumball's Army. PB chooses forgiveness over war. The Kiss. Obsidian. Distant Lands. November 19th, 2020. PB and Marceline domestic and established. The full history of the relationship. Documented through flashback. The photo booth pictures. These episodes, assembled, are the complete documentation of Princess Bubblegum's darkest secrets. Every episode listed adds a piece to the portrait. The portrait, assembled, is the full account of 800 years of love and control and dark choices and imperfect growth. The skeleton was in the dungeon before any of them. It will be there when all of them have been watched. Good night, and for good measure, the inconsistently heinous wiki on Princess Bubblegum lists her confirmed crimes as including mass murder, genocide, infanticide, filicide, assault and battery, unlawful imprisonment, treason, theft, unethical experimentation, torture, corpse desecration, invasion of privacy, war crimes, abuse of power, child abuse, including endangerment, psychological abuse, slavery, stalking, brainwashing, incrimination, extortion, blackmail, sabotage, gaslighting, conspiracy, mutilation, breaking and entering, espionage, and the same wiki notes. She is on and off, as she has plenty of heroic roles and is affable to others, and there are many episodes where she doesn't do anything wrong. Later, she generally mellows out throughout the original series and becomes a better person, stopping her heinous acts on and off. The list and the mellowing, the crimes and the growth, the skeleton in the dungeon and the photo strip on the fridge, on and off, both Both real. Always both. Good night. The Candy Kingdom holds. She holds it. She has been holding it for 800 years. The dark choices and the love, and the skeleton in the dungeon, and the warm pink surface, and the ledger, and the growth. She holds all of it simultaneously, in the same kingdom, in the same person. That's what it means to build something from nothing, by yourself, without a guide, for 800 years. The skeleton was there first. She walked past it. The episode was about something else. The episode is always about something else. And the skeleton is always there. Thank you. Good night.